Hi, I'm Colette Plasway. I'm the program coordinator for the First Nation HIV/AIDS Coalition. My connection with HIV is with my organization, the HIV/AIDS Coalition. I first met a person who is HIV in Saskatchewan, which is kind of ironic that it's one of the hot spots for HIV. But the first person I met when I was doing a nursing program, it was an introduction program, and the person that I was doing the blood pressure and temperature was for a person who was HIV, and of course they stuck the Indian to go check the person with for their blood pressure, but I took it on. I knew that I couldn't get it by touching, so I just went ahead and did my stuff with the HIV person, and the person was shocked. He was obviously in the AIDS phase because he was dying, and it was so clear to me at that time that people really they love to be touched when they're HIV positive. The HIV task force, but now we're called the Coalition, we visited 53 of 55 First Nation communities to visit them right in their communities, not in their Aboriginal, not on the urban offices. We wanted to find out where everybody was at with regards to their HIV programming, and so we went out to their communities to find out what they were doing, and what we found is that only 35% of the communities would accept any of their own community members that have HIV into their communities. Many incidences, at least 3 or 4 that I know of, said that they outright kicked out a person who has HIV. About the community readiness, the other finding that we had, which was kind of interesting, is that only 20% of the communities have a youth council. So what the communities were doing, the significance of a youth council is to have the youth participate and figure out what kind of harm reduction programs that they want in their communities. And because the youth, they didn't feel enough confidence to step forward and become a youth counselor, youth leader, a lot of the communities decided to just go ahead and hire a youth coordinator, and it seems to be very successful. If you have a youth coordinator in each of the communities, I think it would really help with more harm reduction activities for the youth. And it's actually one of our recommendations in the program, in the project report. It's one of the recommendations listed is that each of the communities should have a youth coordinator. One of the recommendations that we are going to put forward to the First Nation Health Authority is that the communities have identified that they want to focus on harm reduction activities for the youth, but they're not successful if you don't have the cooperation of the youth to help you develop the harm reduction. So what the communities have done that have had successful programming for the youth is to have a youth coordinator who is able to communicate with the youth and then plan activities based on youth feedback. That seems to be the most successful versus having a youth council. What we found when we went out to the communities, that the youth councils that were in place, they didn't last very long because it seemed like the youth didn't feel comfortable enough to meet regularly. So for example, there was about 5 youth councils that were in existence when we went out to the communities, but by the end of the year only 1 was still remaining. So it just they don't seem to last that long. So what we're recommending is that each of the communities hire a youth coordinator to help plan the harm reduction activities that would be more successful for the youth for their harm reduction goals. Yeah, I would encourage First Nation communities to welcome back any of their members who are HIV, because a person who just gets HIV, the first thing that they want to decide is whether or not they're even going to live or die. If they do decide to live, they really need the support of their communities to to look at the issues that got them into that situation where they have HIV. So what I mean is they might have a drug or alcohol addiction, and they really need, in order for them to even live with HIV, they need to live a normal, healthy lifestyle, and that is a lot of work that the person needs to do, and it really helps if they have the community support and their programming to help them with HIV. The First Nation communities, when we went out to the communities, one of the number one reason why they wouldn't accept a person who has HIV is because they feel overwhelmed. They feel like they don't have enough programming to help the person who has HIV. For example, medication and any care that they may need if they're HIV. So they feel overwhelmed about that. That ties into the HIV programming, the funding. So they feel like they don't have enough resources to help a person who has HIV, and that's why they don't feel comfortable welcoming a person back who has HIV. And I do have a lot of respect for a person who has HIV and is able to even say to the community that I have HIV. I think that takes a lot of courage, considering that many of the communities have such fear and denial about it.